It's race day in Budapest as we get ready for another round of the Formula One World Championship. We don't expect too many retirements at this track. There are plenty of current and former drivers with flawless finish rates here. In particular, Ralf Schumacher. He made it across the line in all 10 of his Hungarian Grand Prix starts. The Hungaroring, it's like Monaco without the boats. 14 corners, 6 to the left and 8 to the right, and some very tricky corners to deal with. These rainy conditions out there aren't going to help either, so it's very likely we'll see a safety car or two during today's race. It's not going to be plain sailing for our drivers today, although with the sky falling as it is, perhaps sailing isn't too far from the truth. Anthony Davidson, could be a wet one today. Great to have you with us. What are your thoughts?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are 3 big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature and visibility. Judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Perez, Carlos Sainz and Norris, Gasly, Ricciardo, the owner driver, they've taken a grid penalty, and Max Verstappen, Stroll, Giovinazzi, Sebastian Vettel and Raikkonen, Schwartzman, Russell, Mick Schumacher and Fernando Alonso. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Latifi, Mazepin, Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back here with another My Team Career Mode video, and it is the Hungarian Grand Prix. As I'm sure you can all see, it certainly isn't the most fantastic of weather conditions. It's absolutely bucketing it down here today for what is set to be the 3rd wet race in a row. It's not going to be a nice and jolly one, of course. We had qualifying yesterday. If you guys haven't watched that, you might want to click on the video now and watch that, or you might want to just continue with me and we'll have a quick rundown of the grid in a minute. But that was perfectly dry, and it looks like we're not going to be getting much perfectly dry in today's race. It looks like it will stop raining towards the end. However, how far into these 35 laps of the Hungarian Grand Prix that will be, I am not sure, because we've got 3 blocks of heavy rain, 3 blocks of light rain and a block of sunshine. So overall 7 blocks. You divide that by 35, we're looking at 5-lap blocks. 5 laps in dry conditions, that could be long enough for the slicks to be worth it. It's really going to be an interesting Grand Prix in terms of strategy. It's got the wet set for now. That's fine. It will probably be a 1-stopper or a 2-stopper. It'll definitely be wets to inters, and then whether we'll get onto the slicks by the end of the Grand Prix, I'm not sure. But certainly wet to start, and then the intermediates when they are necessary. The question, as I've said, that will be whether we will get onto the slicks by the end of the Grand Prix. We don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if we do, but with some sunshine and clouds set for the last few laps, there's a good chance, of course, because if it is into those slick conditions, the slicks are going to be so much quicker than the intermediates. If you're out the points, it's certainly a gamble worth taking if you're P12 or 13. We'll have to wait and see, but as I've said, it will be starting on the wets. We'll definitely get an inter-stint in there. Whether we'll get on the slicks, I'm not entirely sure. But before we do get into what looks like quite a wet race at the moment, let's have a little look at the grid after some grid penalties have been applied from yesterday's quali result. P9 was not the position we ended up finishing quali in yesterday. We managed to get P6, I do believe it was, at the flag of Q3. But of course we have taken a 5-place grid penalty, so have others, including Max Verstappen, who starts just behind. So it is going to be a very interesting Grand Prix here today. I have to say, we're going to have a little bit of work to do if we want to stay in P9 with Verstappen behind, but points certainly still possible for us. However, it is a great opportunity for Perez and Bottas to really gain on us in the championship. In terms of the man on pole, though, that is neither of them. It is Lewis Hamilton. He's had a dismalish start to the season. Hasn't had any outstanding performances. If he wants to get back into the title fight, of which he's pretty much out of it by now, he needs to start off a great run of results. And I'm talking about P1 and P2 for pretty much the last 4 races of the season starting here today. He needs a great result, so P1 is certainly a good start for him. Bottas, P2, he'll be looking to finish in the top 2, maybe even go for the win, because he is currently pretty much side by side with Verstappen in terms of points in P3. A great result here today, though, capitalising on ourselves having that grid penalty in Verstappen. That would really launch him up the order a little bit. That would get him a lot closer to us, probably get comfortably ahead of Verstappen. So Bottas, if he can get those decent points today, that'll bring him right into championship contention for the championship itself against ourselves to win his potentially what would be his second Drivers' Championship, of course, after he won in Season 1. So 2 in a row, that could potentially be. He needs to capitalise on ourselves further down the field and Verstappen, because he can close that gap to us, close the gap to Perez in P2 a little bit, close the gap down to us too, but also gain a massive chunk on Max Verstappen, and that would be pivotal. Perez, of course, P4. He needs to be pushing up to the front too. P4 in Silverstone wasn't really good enough. He needs something a lot better than that if he wants to be really competing for the championship. I thought he'd be the title contender against ourselves, but at the moment he's starting to struggle a little bit. The pressure may be getting to him. Silverstone only managed P4. If he gets P4 again today, he'll be losing points to Valtteri Bottas and not really gaining enough on us. So he wants to be fighting forward to the front 2 Mercs, but in front of him, a bit of a roadblock there, but certainly a very fast one. The Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. In fact, Ferrari P3 and P5. Leclerc a little quicker than Sainz this weekend, but Charles took a podium here last season, and the Ferrari looking blisteringly quick here today. Once again, of course, qualifying, they looked fantastic. So Charles, don't count him out for taking a podium today in the mixed round there. He's certainly looking strong, so good opportunity for Charles this weekend. Hopefully he can be fighting up with the Mercs, fighting with Perez. That would be great to see. So don't count him out for a really good result. Similarly with Carlos Sainz. P5 for Carlos there. Yeah, that's a pretty decent position to start in, I have to say, for him. Yes, a little bit off his teammate. He'll be looking to take some great points, though. Charge up the Drivers' Championship a little bit too. So Carlos, don't count him out to be able to fight with his teammate too in the top 5, because he should be pretty comfortable to finish in the top 5, because behind it is the McLaren and Lando Norris's teammate Ricciardo, P8. Those two really struggled for pace in quali. Whether that'll continue today, I don't know, but if it does, I certainly wouldn't put them in the top 5 for the finishing results. Of course, Lando Norris made it through to Q3, didn't have blistering pace. Daniel Ricciardo didn't even make it through. He went out in Q2. Benefited from grid penalties for others, but they start P6 and P8, and I'd expect the fight for those two to be with Pierre Gasly, who starts P7. The Frenchman, of course, will be looking to keep his team ahead of McLaren in the Constructors, so expect to see a little bit of a fight there for P6 between those three. Then we, of course, start P9. It's going to be a difficult one for us to stay ahead of Verstappen. However, with the likes of Stroll, Giovinazzi and Vettel behind, we should potentially be on for a point or two. But Verstappen, P10, he'll need to fight up the order quite a bit. Can't afford to lose loads to Bottas, because that would really take him out of the equation for P3 in the championship. He wants to be able to fight for the drivers this season, but of course, he can't afford to lose any more to Perez or Bottas, really. He can't afford to lose any to Perez. He can't let Perez, his teammate, get further away, and certainly can't lose the tail off Valtteri Bottas's car, because he's right there with him. But if Bottas takes a massive amount of points, maybe P1 or P2 today, and Verstappen only manages P7 or 8 at the flag, that's going to be pivotal for the championship. So a lot of work for him to do. It's going to be very hard for us to stay ahead of a Hungary Dutchman there. P18, Lance Stroll in his Alpha Tauri. Why did I say P18? P11, actually. P11 there for Lance. I don't really think he's going to be able to fight forward too much, but of course, any shenanigans in the top 10, I wouldn't count him out for some points. Got P10 here last season, wouldn't count him out for that this season, of course. P10 could certainly be a possibility if someone in the top 10 has a mechanical failure or a spin or a crash or something like that, and we have absolute shenanigans unfolding in the top 10. You don't know, but if that does happen, Lance could certainly be in the mix there. So could Giovinazzi and Raikkonen. P12 and P14 for Alfa Romeo. If they can try and stay around that sort of an area in the field, they could potentially be in for some points with a bit of luck from disasters in front. Vettel P13 qualified behind Giovinazzi after Giovinazzi got through to Q2 and had an absolutely fantastic drive there. So Vettel will be looking to fight a bit further forward, maybe battle with Lance a little bit for P11. We'll have to wait and see with that one, but don't count him out. Schwartzman will be pretty happy with P15. He's had a bit of disappointing season so far. Hasn't found any real pace. Struggled like he has last season, so P15 will be pretty decent if he can stay there until the flag. Russell, P16 with Schumacher, P17. The duo there. Got to be happy with having those promotions thanks to others taking grid penalties. Be great to see them maybe working as a unit to fight forward to the likes of Schwartzman and Raikkonen, but also defending from faster cars behind him. One of those is Alonso. What a shame for him. P10 in quali, looking like he could have had a great race, but not to be, thanks to engine penalties. He'll start P18, points out the equation. Hopefully he'll be able to fight forward, potentially into the top 15, but it's going to be difficult to overtake in these wet conditions. Similarly, for Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda there, P21 and P22. Shame for those guys, they would have been on the cusp of points in terms of the grid order starting. I was really hoping my teammate could maybe fight forward with me a little bit in this one, but it's not going to be in terms of Esteban and Yuki. Those are pretty much out of it. But Latifi and Mazepin have gained a couple of places to not be at the back there, P19 and 20. I'm sure they'll be looking forward to be fighting with Ocon and Yuki, my teammate, of course, because a little bit of action at the back. They don't usually get non-Williams or Haas back there to fight, but plenty of action. Watch out for the likes of Alonso, Ocon and Tsunoda charging through. Verstappen, also Bottas, Leclerc and Perez. It's going to be a very interesting Grand Prix. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But let's get into the Hungarian Grand Prix. Looking at the amount of standing water on track and rain coming down, it could certainly be a difficult Hungarian Grand Prix here. Round number 7 out of 10 in Season 2. 5 red lights. They're out and away we go, and it's a little bit careful off the start here. Very, very slippery. Lance, don't send it to the inside of outside of us there. We don't need that. Let's see if we can send it down the inside line of, oh, maybe even Norris too. Bottas into the lead off the start. Perez versus Charles Leclerc for P3. Lando Norris up to P5. Side by side with Sainz. He's going to have the inside line, which is certainly the desired line into this corner. But we could be able to just brave it out, and we're going to do exactly that. A little bit of oversteer there. Are we going to be able to stay ahead of him now? Keep it nice and careful, and that is P6. Lovely start for us there, but also a great start for Perez up to P3 and Bottas up to P1. So we've had a decent start, but our championship rivals have had a good one too. Verstappen up to P8, so not a terrible one for him. Leclerc's going to be a little bit annoyed. Norris is going to be happy with that though. P5 off the start, that's decent. He should be able to work with that, especially being ahead of one Ferrari, but we are P6. Not where I thought I'd be off the start. This is actually where we qualified, so not exactly the same order in terms of the people around us, but exactly where we qualified. I'm happy with that. Already starting to drop away a bit from Lando Norris. Generally, it's going to be difficult to stay with these guys. I definitely think the front runners are going to start to get away, and I don't know if Ricciardo's had some sort of a problem there. He's starting to drop away off the train in conditions like this, when cars are going so slowly. backing everyone up into each other. Wouldn't be surprising if maybe he's got a knock on his front wing, but looks alright. No one's coming to the pits, and the end of lap number 1. We're looking pretty decent here. Let's have another look at the start then ourselves. P9, 5 red lights. They went out. We got away pretty poorly, struggling a little bit for grip off the start. Not a surprise. Verstappen got away well there. You can see Bottas maybe having a look at Hamilton into the first corner. Certainly did. Then manages to go for the move, and you can see ourselves down the inside line of both Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. Norris glides back in front. Carlos looking down the inside line of us to regain the position, as it's a bit of a battle between Daniel Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly back there. Gasly hung out to dry a little bit, but he's going to continue the fight. There, those guys heading side by side as further in front is Verstappen versus Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz in front, and then Giovinazzi and Ricciardo fighting. Let's get a bit of camera angle. Giovinazzi trying to send it down the inside line, maybe searching for a position that would give Alfa Romeo their first points of the season. And look at that, still side by side. This is some beautiful racing action, and it's teammates Vettel and Schwartzman fighting further back there. Ricciardo gets the position done. It's Giovinazzi, Stroll, Russell. Let's have a look at Vettel. Yeah, Vettel ahead of teammate Schwartzman. So it's Bottas who leads from Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, Norris. Ourselves, Sainz, Verstappen, Gasly and Ricciardo does round out the points. The reason why he's a bit further back is because he had that tussle with the Alfa Romeo. Number 3, it is here. And as you can see, we really just don't have the pace of the guys in front. We don't really have the pace of the guys behind. Sainz got pretty close to us, then just stuck his nose in a little bit at the hairpin. Not the hairpin, sorry, the chicane. It's not really, well, there's plenty of sort of like hairpins toward the end of the lap, but had a little look at the chicane and then ended up backing off a little bit. But Bottas is flying in this one. We are certainly not. And I'm sure that Carlos Sainz is going to be getting very annoyed at us at the moment, because he'll be thinking, right, maybe there's a chance of me being able to chase down Lando Norris, but he can't do that because he seems to have the slowest man in the world in front of him. I'm not as slow as the Alfa Romeos and the Alfa Tauris, but you can just see the car's got no grip in there. I can brake at 75 metres there, or 50 metres, and the car locks up in the exact same way, and we end up going in the exact same place. If I brake at 100 metres, the car doesn't lock up, but I lose more time from having to brake at 100 metres. So the car just is not playing nicely today. It's not great out on track, and we are just really not going to be able to stay with Lando here, which is a bit of a shame, but it's just how this race is going at the moment. We're just trying to stay ahead of Carlos, and it isn't too difficult because it's so difficult to overtake in these conditions. He can't really get close to us enough to be able to go for a move in the braking zone, but you can just see at the moment how bad it is out on track. It is starting to get towards Inter's weather. Jeff is pretty convinced it's borderline at this point. However, I don't think we'll be coming in until about lap number 6, 7, maybe even 8 in this one. No, I'm wrong. Leclerc's into the pits, and so is, I do believe that'll be one of the Mercs. Is that Hamilton? And Perez is into the pits. Bottas stays out. Norris stays out.
Running in third, P3.
This is a pivotal moment in this GP here, because Bottas really stay ahead of Hamilton? You don't know. Could Norris gain on Leclerc? Could Hamilton get back into the lead as we run very, very deep here? It's summing up our Grand Prix so far, and that's going to invite Sainz right back into it. It'll be time for us to come in here. You guys can see we are changing to the intermediate tyres. We're going to be joined, probably, by the rest of the field, and the likes of Hamilton. He's now got stuck behind some traffic towards the back. So has the likes of Charles Leclerc. Perez, I do believe, has 2. So those guys aren't going to be benefiting. And Norris could be into a nice position. We are in, and someone stayed out. Is that Pierre Gasly, or was that Lance Stroll? Wait, those guys are staying out again. So a couple of drivers opting to stay out. Here we go. Inters are on. Where are we going to end up filtering out? Are we going to be near Charles Leclerc? And oh, look at that. by staying out. Lando Norris has gained the position on Charles Leclerc. It does seem that Perez is now P3. Who is our leader?
Static over the radio. Say again.
Full race update.
We're in 10th position. Leclerc is ahead of you. They're on fresh inters. Verstappen behind. The gap to the car behind is 1.1.
Okay, well, it looks like they're not going to tell me who's in the lead. That would be helpful.
Gap to leader, 1.7 seconds. Your pit window will open in 14 laps time. 30 laps
Lovely,
till the
Jeff.
end now.
But who is the leader? Who is the leader, Jeff? Not entirely sure that's Hamilton or Bottas. We'll have to have a look in a second, as that is a huge lock-up for ourselves here. We're going to go side by side with Verstappen on the exit. It is Mazepin in front, P9. Hasn't decided to pit yet. He's still on those slow wets, but you can see we're struggling for grip. And Carlos Sainz down in P12, opted to pit. Didn't help him. Lost out to Verstappen. Wow, certainly a very intense start to this GP. Some more drivers are going to come in, I think, at the end of this lap, I'm guessing. Let's have a little refresh of the order then, because we currently sit P6 at the moment on lap number 8. This is after everyone's switched the wets for the inters. We're going to go right to the top of the field. Valtteri Bottas, the Finn, leads the order at the moment. That is from Lewis Hamilton, his teammate in P2. He is being closely chased down by Checo Perez. You can see him there starting to make inroads in his Red Bull. Lando Norris sits P4, leading Charles Leclerc. Managed to get in front of him during the pit stop. So great work from Lando, and is in front of Charles. Further back, we lead Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz is in that pack. Pierre Gasly and then Ricciardo at the back of that train with the last points positions. Then a bit further back, off the back of the train, it is Antonio Giovinazzi in his Alfa Romeo. Then George Russell doing fantastically well, taking advantage of those pit stops up to P12. He sits in front of Lance Stroll, who's gone down the order. Raikkonen in a solid P14 in front of Alonso, who has charged up the field. Decent work from him and good progress. Vettel down to P16, struggling. Not as much as his teammate, though. He is off the back of Vettel in a separate little group with himself and Mick Schumacher. Nice to see a little battle there. Schumacher really on the back of him, looking for an overtake. And then towards the back of the field, it is Nicholas Latifi in his Williams who leads Esteban Ocon and my teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Those guys just can't get through in these wet conditions. Really difficult to overtake and just sat stationary in terms of the order, with Nikita Mazepin rounding out the field. Mick Schumacher, I have to say, has been running really nicely so far in this GP. P18, fighting with Robert Schwartzman. He's not going to go for the move there, surely. Oh my goodness. What a move on Robert Schwartzman round the outside line at the start of Sector 2. Schumacher up to P17. Lovely little battle there. And Schumacher will be looking to probably just drive his own race now. Maybe try to charge after Sebastian Vettel in P16. Times are continuing to tumble once again into the 1 minute 29s now. Bottas holding the fastest lap. That is changing every single lap, and slicks becoming more and more likely towards the end of this GP. But as you can see, we're not incredibly slow. We're getting purple sector 1s. We're not incredibly slow. We're just not really with it in terms of the pace. We're never really that quick round here. I think if it was dry, we'd probably be in a DRS train with the likes of Leclerc, Norris and Sainz probably, and Ricciardo and Verstappen just hanging on to them a little bit, thanks to the fact they're in a train and we've got DRS. But we're not going too badly here, I've got to say. The field is absolutely spread out at this point. You might have thought, okay, it's a wet race, it might just stay as a long train. Well, no, that's not happening. Not like it was at Spain in Season 1, and that was because of me, but Bottas won at 29.6. You can see the lap times continuing to come down. Overtakes not that common at the moment, with it being in these wet conditions, but Sainz starting to drop a little bit further back off Verstappen. And I say it's a train, but to be honest, the gaps are pretty big, that I don't know if you can call it a train at this point. Everyone's about within a second of each other, so the gaps are pretty big. Norris still ahead of Leclerc. Leclerc is there, but you can't get close enough in these conditions for an overtake without a mistake. from the driver in front. So those two looking reasonably close at the moment, P4 and 5. Meanwhile, Bottas comfortable out front, despite his teammate chasing him down a little bit. You can see we are going really nicely in Sector 1, just starting to struggle as soon as we enter Sector 3, and that is quite clearly displayed with that there. But it's not easy in these conditions. It's getting better. You can probably see that. But I'm just happy that the gap back to the gap in front to Norris and Leclerc is not increasing. That's what we need. It's not increasing. That is pivotal, that it's not increasing too much. It is increasing a little bit, to be honest, but not too much here. We have had a very sloppy middle sector this lap. We are getting a bit messy. Just need to find that form again and just continue putting the laps in, because often consistency is key in wet races like this one. But gonna round out this lap. So now be able to accelerate onto the main straight. We're going to be comfortable. DRS not in this, so overtaking very difficult. The team are thinking about bringing us in onto another set of inters. I don't like that idea. I don't know if the AI are going to do that, but I really do think it's going to dry up and we're going to get slicks. I am pretty certain about that. You guys already know. Again, starting to struggle a little bit more. The times aren't tumbling anymore. Bottas did manage to go quicker, but only by a teeny little bit. So at the moment, lap times aren't really coming down. We are not going to be coming into the pits. I don't think it's really worth it. I mean, there's nothing really to gain too much from it. I mean, potentially, it could play right into our hands if everyone else has to pit for slicks. But it then does give us an option to pit for slicks, because we're going to have to off the inters, in a sense, because the inters are going to be unsuitable but also worn. It's going to be a very, very interesting strategy here. Will the AI pit or not? I mean, it's not like someone's out front with a massive lead, so they can afford to pit. And also, if we are going to pit, it'd probably be something like lap number 22 even, so I don't think it'd be 20, but I really don't think coming into pits is a good idea. You can see out on track, it isn't getting any better, but it isn't getting any worse. And on the weather forecast, it is set to clear up. Jeff said 10 mins about a couple of mins ago, so time's ticking, and we could end up on the slicks by this one. But on to lap number 19, again, the pace not really there. At this point, car going slowly. Is it Valtteri Bottas? What a turn in this GP. It happened to Verstappen last season and Bottas took the win. But Bottas he's had a mechanical failure. I can't believe this. Bottas has had a mechanical failure. Hamilton is back into the lead. There's Valtteri. What a shock in this GP. What a shock. Bottas is out. We're up to P5. And Norris is on the podium. This is a very shocking GP. Hamilton now leads, and Perez is up to P2. He is going to be looking at that Mercedes and thinking, right, this is my opportunity. I'm fancying a P1, but what drama here. Bottas is out of the Hungarian Grand Prix with a mechanical failure, so no faults of his own and a potential win taken off him thanks to poor Mercedes reliability, and Hamilton in clean air goes and sets the fastest lap. Very pivotal moment in this Grand Prix because Perez and Leclerc have both entered the pits. We've stayed out. Verstappen, for some reason through the final sector, has had some problems, and Perez might have been thinking about the undercut on Lewis, but he's just been spat out into that train led by his teammate Verstappen, who is really going slowly. Has he got a problem? I don't know. He's starting to speed back up now. He looks all right, but Perez might have been going for that strategy on Hamilton. That's not going to work at all. And also, Leclerc maybe trying to undercut Lando Norris, who stayed out. That's certainly possible because he's out in clean air. Question is it worth pitting here? Weather report.
Current forecast is 5 or 10 more minutes of rain before it dries up. Inters look like the best tyre for now.
5 or 10 more mins before it dries up. The actual amount of tyre wear on this car at the moment is pretty minimal. I am very happy to stay out in this one. I am very comfortable to stay out and then probably pit onto slicks at the end of this one. Absolutely happy to do that. We are going to stay out. Norris and Hamilton are in. Where's everyone going to filter out? We'll be able to watch it on the mini-map down the main straight once we've got nice and comfy. Yes, we have Perez. Is he going to be anywhere near Hamilton? Are we going to be anywhere near Hamilton? We're going to be out ahead of Hamilton. That could be pivotal. That could be absolutely pivotal. And yet, we are in P1, but with very, very worn tyres. Perez, the strat didn't work. Charles Leclerc is not going to be ahead of Lando Norris. It's close, but he is not going to be ahead. We have got Hamilton chasing us here in the Merc, a faster car with faster tyres. But wow, what an interesting one here. I have to say, no real changes thanks to the pit stops, and Perez is a couple of seconds behind. We have a big question here. Do we decide to defend from Hamilton or not? Because it's title rival Perez back in P3, but we might be able to stay ahead of Hamilton here. So this kind of makes sense just to stay ahead of him. It does make sense, actually. It really does. We might as well defend from Hamilton, see how long we can do it for. Because I want slicks at the end of this one. And if we can have slicks for the last 5 laps, I'm not pitting for 8 laps of inters. So we're staying out here. We're going to see how far we can go on these worn inters already. Perez right onto the back of us and Hamilton. But as long as we just get good exits out of corners onto straights with no DRS, we're going to be pretty comfortable in this one. Ricardo pits. He'll filter out quite far behind. It's been a couple of laps and the conditions are very much borderline here. Is it ready for slicks or not? That is the question. Do we pit or do we stay out here? I'm going to stay out one more lap. I don't think it's quite ready. We are going to box at the end of this lap. Oh, a little bit messy on the exit. What tyres do we choose? We've only got used soft, so I think a fresh set of mediums. I'd quite like some mediums. I think that might be a better idea. Slightly harder compound. Still a couple of spots coming down on the visor. But as you can see, it's pretty much dry now. Verstappen 1 minute 28. The times will tumble. It is drying out, and I think it is ready for slicks. And if I'm wrong, then we've gone from a tactical masterclass to a tactical disaster, which is not what we want. But I think we are ready for these tyres. We'll rejoin in 8th anyway, so if it's not quite ready for them, there's a massive gap back there, of course, to the Alfa Romeo, so we'll still take decent points and so on. So we should be looking all right in this one with the strat, as Hamilton gets a bit close to the back of us. I'm not comfortable in these tyres anymore. Really, really not. You can probably tell that. It is getting pretty dry. A little warning there. Can't afford any more of them, I don't think. As I say that, we nearly try our luck a little bit on the exit there, but we're okay. Definitely, you can see we're still going wide here. Did that pretty much every lap now. Sorry about that, guys. But I think it's time for tyres, and there need to be fresh ones. Look at the conditions, surely. It's still raining, though. But we're going to come in onto slicks. Let's see. Is this the right decision? It's starting to dry out, surely. This is going to hopefully work. It's going to be sunshine a little bit later in this one. So there's still a couple of droplets coming down our visor. They're probably just there because they are. But there we go, into the pits. Mediums are on. They're off. 2 seconds stop. Well done, guys. Really nicely done. We're going to come out in a good position. How are the tyres? Out on track right now. Very, very bad. Okay. It might have been a bit too early for these. Let's test them out. Oh, no. No. They're a bit slippery at the moment, I have to say. They are slippery. They are very slippery. We should have stayed out another lap, but the track is drying, so it will progressively get better. DRS is enabled, but the AI, are they going to pit? They've only got like, they've under 8 laps left in this one. and they will not be wanting to pit too early. So Ricciardo's going to come at us. We're just going to let him through there. Fair enough, Danny Rick. You are fine to come through. But my teammate's into the pits.
Coming in for his stop.
Plenty of drivers coming in. Definitely time now, I think. It does feel like it's time. It really, really does. Where are we going to filter out now? Oh, yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it. The grip is here. The grip is really, really here. We should get DRS because Danny Rick's in front of us, even though he's going to pit here. So that's going to help us down the main straight. We're a little bit slippery. Are we still going to be ahead of the likes of Hamilton and Perez? That's the question. Ricciardo peels in. We should get DRS. Yes, we're going to get DRS here. The track is very dry. It's how much can you push it. That's what we're testing. Verstappen has opted for the softs. We've opted for the mediums. Everyone else on softs, and those guys have come out in front. They've played the gamble perfectly, and we have lost the lead here. A bit of a shame with that. It's going to be P3. We've just got to try and stay ahead of Norris and Leclerc. So wet weather running has finished. It's now time for slicks. Everyone's on the slicks. The question is, how much can you actually push it? Pretty much, actually. Virtually a dry track here, but we have lost P1. That's pretty much going to happen. Purple in Sector 1 starting to really find some grip here, but bit of a shame. Can we stay P3 for the podium? That is the question. It seems that we've actually gone all right there. We've got a purple sector, I do believe. We've gone for the fastest lap, generally because all the other cars are on the outlap, but we are being caught by Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc here. It's proving a little bit difficult now, actually, that we're in the dry conditions. It was easier in the wet conditions. So whether we should have stayed out or not, that's the big question. Oh my god, that was scary. We somehow held that, so that's nice. And we didn't go purple, we went green in Sector 1. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we are now being caught up by Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. This is to try and keep the podium. The other question is, can Perez fight Hamilton? I think he's out of DRS, so that's quite pivotal up there. Now we're going to be chased down by Danny Rick's teammate Lando Norris, side by side now through here. After a mistake, we don't want to lose out to Charles Leclerc too. We're going to try to use the ERS down here. Chase down Lando. Ocon's gone quickest, 1 minute 25. That shows how terrible we are at driving at this stage. Now, Norris just in front. The pace isn't there for us, is it? We're going to end up down the order. And we're pushing too much here. Trying a bit too hard, I feel. And now we're going to be out of DRS range from Norris. I'm tempted just to let Charles through here. You can come through, Charles. Come on, Charles. Feel free. Feel free.
Okay, we've lost the position. That's
Go fight Lando, because the pace for us is not here. I'll be happy just to try and see what we can do. Mediums might have been the wrong choice. It's gone from a great decision to a terrible decision with the strategy. However, this was where we were before we decided not to pit. So the target, can we stay ahead of Verstappen? Quite unlikely, but that's what we've got to try and do. He's going to chase us down. We are going to be all right, though, in this position. We're going to try our hardest, but the pace isn't really here on the slicks. It just seems that it's fallen apart a little bit. Oh, and he's going to come at us. Not exactly where I want to fight. Oh, we've been really shoved out there. That is messy. Not nice to watch. Verstappen's through to P5. We just can't seem to find any sort of pace round here. It's pretty infuriating, to be honest with you. I was hyping up the slicks for the whole race, and now it's slicks. We're doing terrible. Sonoda, my teammate, doing pretty well in some clean air. Well, not really, but it's I think that's Alonso in front, or is it Ocon? Hamilton, 1 minute 17.6. We're back down to the normal lap times. Ourselves, we're nowhere near that, really, to be honest. We are struggling. Charles Leclerc, 1 minute 17.6. He's charging too. We just don't have the pace. Sat down now in P6. We are on to the penultimate lap here. Lap 34 out of 35. We're being chased down by the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Already lost out to the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. We're starting to push a little bit. We had a messy middle sector this lap. That hasn't helped us. Hamilton goes quickest. Verstappen's on the charge. Yellow flags are out. And that is, I think, Lance Stroll, who is going slowly. That's a shame for him. Maybe remembering the reliability issues he had at Aston Martin. But Carlos Sainz is charging after Max Verstappen. He's up to P6. Not much we can do. Have a little look there. Nearly gets a bit dirty, but as I'm sure you can see, it looks like Hamilton is going to win his first GP of the season. And Lando Norris is going to hang on for a podium. Charles Leclerc is being chased down by Verstappen. We're going to finish P7. The medium's maybe not the right choice of tyre, I have to say, and that's proved quite costly. Caution, Jeff. Thank you for that. Thank you. What is it? Oh, it'd be Lance, won't it? Don't know where Lance has parked it, but Lance has parked it somewhere. There it is. That's where Lance has parked it. Shame for him. Wasn't in the points, though, so not a big blow. Who is going to be taking the extra point? Alfa Romeo are going to be in the points. I am loving to see that. Just realised that. Great to see Alfa Romeo in the points. Plenty of fun there. Hamilton with the fastest lap. Is he going to be rivalled? He wins the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's been what's felt like a very long 35 laps. We are going to take points. P7 at the flag. A bit disappointing considering where we were at one point in the race. But P7 on the mediums to finish.
So Mercedes have won it, and what a great race it was. So Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent driving, nailing the corners, working to the track conditions and perfecting the team's strategies. They got all of these things right today and the results speak for themselves.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
I have to say, that result, it feels a little bit disappointing in the end there. It could have been an awful lot worse, to be honest with you, looking at the race, and I was really hyping up the dry conditions at the end, and had it not have actually dried out, there's a good chance we would have been on the podium. In fact, it was quite likely we would have been on the podium. We would probably have potentially been fighting for the win still, because if it was just intermediate conditions to the flag, then you wouldn't really be able to overtake. So Hamilton and Perez would have really struggled to get past us, and we certainly would have finished P3. So quite frustrating that it actually ended up dry, but it was sort of a race of two halves. We played the strategy in two different ways, and one half of it paid off. The second half, it didn't pay off. It's frustrating, but I just couldn't acclimatise to the conditions. Now, that was a simple thing. I couldn't acclimatise to the dry conditions at the end of the race. It was frustrating. It really, really was. I couldn't do that, but I suppose it's life in a sense. It really is life. It really is life. 6 points, though, at a track, which is definitely one of my weakest on the calendar. I'm really, really happy with that. Definitely a good amount of damage limitation today. And a really good wet race. You know, not much happened when it was wet, as always, but actually that was the best part of the race for us. But still, plenty of great action. Your winner, though, is Lewis Hamilton. I said it at the start of the video. He needs some good results. He needs to start putting in these really fantastic results. He needs lots of wins, and he started that here today. 26 points on the board, the maximum you can take out of a race weekend. Finishes P1 in 52 mins, quite a long one today, with the best lap of 1 minute 17 4.72. So a fantastic drive from the Brit ahead of Checo Perez. And Hamilton, that is going to put him right where his teammate is, in fact. He's going to gain 26 points on Valtteri, so he is sort of getting back into the mix. But with that DNF for Valtteri and Perez comfortably ahead of Verstappen, it's really starting to look like ourselves versus Perez in the championship. It really, really is. But a great drive from Hamilton, nonetheless. Perez certainly needed 18 points or more today. He got those 18 points. From fourth on the grid, it could have gone a lot worse for him. Yes, he got one position from Charles Leclerc. That was from a slower car, and he did get one position from Bottas having the mechanical failure, but a really decent drive from Checo Perez there. 18 points in the end. Couple of seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. that's what he needed today. He needed to capitalise on ourselves not having that strong of a race in terms of the track it is. He's gained 12 points on us. He needs to keep doing that. If he continues to do that, Checo will be right up there in the standings. But great to see the Mexican with another fantastic drive. P2 for him in the Red Bull. Lando Norris, P3, a podium. He's had a really disappointing season so far. It happened last season, but now it's starting to brighten up like the race did at the end. P6 on the grid after a very underwhelming qualifying session yesterday. He really outperformed that McLaren, fought with Charles Leclerc, got the position actually thanks to pit stops, and he kept it. Lovely drive from Lando. Got to be a confidence booster to take those 15 points. Great to see him on the podium, but those 15 points are going to be pivotal in the championship, and that's also 13 more than his teammate, so really great drive from Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc, P4, and that's got to be a little bit frustrating for him. They start at P3 on the grid. Would have been hoping to finish ahead of Lando Norris, especially with the McLaren's troubles in the quali session yesterday, but still a good solid result for Charles. His fastest lap was really up there with the likes of Perez. He had the pace, just couldn't really get past Norris in the end there. Finished half a second behind, so a really great drive from Charles. 12 points on the board for him today. That'll help him in the drivers' standings. Max Verstappen with a very decent drive considering the conditions. P10 on the grid to P5 at the flag. He got a decent start, then just kept working behind us, kept comfortably ahead of the likes of Sainz, Gasly and Ricciardo. Did exactly that, and then managed to get us at the end when we were turning into a bit of a sitting duck there. But 10 points for Max Verstappen. Damage limitation. He's lost 16 to Lewis, which isn't great, but it could have been a lot worse, especially since he's taken 2 grid penalties, and only lost 8 to his teammates. So overall, a great recovery for Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz with a decent 8 points for Ferrari. That does mean that Ferrari take 1 more point than McLaren this weekend to extend their lead a little bit more on them, but Carlos could have been a bit more there, but overall a really solid drive to take those 8 points. Throughout the race, just pretty much sat there and ran there in like P7, and then of course managed to get us right at the end of that one. But Carlos takes a good amount of points. That's what he needed to do. Looked pretty strong today, just stuck in that train. Couldn't really show his full potential, but a good drive. We finished P7 in what was a very, very mixed race for us. The start of the race was good. I was happy with that. Then sort of say the middle segment of the race, really good. And then the final segment of the race was just a bit of a disaster. But 6 points at the end from 9th on the grid at one of my weaker tracks when it was pretty treacherous out on track at the start. Really happy with that. Our best lap, only 18. 7.52. Not really with it at the end, but overall a decent drive from ourselves. P9 on the grid. We made up the places, pulled off that 2-stop really nicely, and those 6 points could come in pivotal at the end of the season. So good amount of damage limitation today for ourselves. Gasly P8. I can't really say he's going to be disappointed with that or really happy. He's only dropped a position, still takes 4 points and finished ahead of a faster McLaren. So good drive from Gasly there. Ricciardo struggling once again, finished out the back of that train, in fact dropped off it at times. Only 2 points for him when his teammate took 15. But Ricciardo, again, the weaker of the 2 McLaren drivers in this career mode, struggling, even though his best lap was really decent there. So maybe found a bit of pace at the end, but just couldn't really pull it all together to make a great race. So only 2 points for him today. And then Antonio Giovinazzi finally gets in the points. Yes, he has got a point on the table for himself and Alfa Romeo. You'd love to see it. P12 on the grid, and I said this at the start, him, maybe Stroll, of course, he had a mechanical failure, potentially even Russell, they could get in the top 10 if there was some shenanigans or a mechanical failure. Bottas had a mechanical failure, Giovinazzi takes advantage of it. A fantastic drive in that Alfa Romeo. Really great to see. Just nothing else really to say, but an incredible drive from Antonio Giovinazzi. P12 to P10 at the flag, and a point for Alfa Romeo. That rounds out the top 10. George Russell only just missed out by a few seconds on managing to get Williams their first points of the season. P11 and a fantastic drive in a very, very uncompetitive car. So George really outperforming his car like Antonio did with his Alfa Romeo, and P11, he's going to be very, very proud of that result. Alonso will be very proud of his recovery from P18 to P12 when DRS was only available for the last 5 or so laps. So Alonso drove fantastically in those wet weather conditions, made it count with the strategy. Alpine certainly did, and a great drive. Nearly got himself towards the points there. Really close actually to Antonio Giovinazzi, so fantastic work from Alonso. Not so much for Seb Vettel in the end there. Bit disappointing for the Aston Martin driver. P13 started there and finished there. Couldn't really fight too much today. Didn't manage to fight with the likes of Russell and Giovinazzi. Bit of a disappointing one in his Aston Martin. Kimi Raikkonen started 14th, stayed 14th at the flag. It was an okay drive for him, about where the car is. Not as stunning as his teammate, but solid one from Kimi. And a solid one for Robert. Got to be happy with P15. He's had some rocky results this season and only a couple of places behind his teammates. Not too bad there. Mick Schumacher, though, P16. A very decent drive in the Haas. Not quite what Williams' George Russell managed to do, but a very decent drive from Mick. Gained a position by the end of that one. That was thanks to the mechanical failure, but managed to stay ahead of Yuki and Esteban. So good work from the German. Yuki, bit frustrating that it was only P17, but really difficult. Got stuck behind Latifi with, of course, Ocon for quite a while. Those two finished together for the whole race, so great to see them working forward together. Gained a few positions, and that's P17 for Yuki and P18 for Esteban. Nicholas Latifi for Williams finished P19. He started there too, so a solid result for him. And Nikita Mazepin. Generally, I say it's a solid result. They just finished at the back of the finishers because Lance Stroll had a mechanical failure right in the dying moments of the GP. And Valtteri Bottas also had a DNF, so a very interesting GP. And we're going to head over to the standings to see what that has done. We have 120 points. Perez, though, with 104, is now just 16 behind. He could go into Mexico in the lead. In fact, he could go into Mexico with a lead of 10 points at most. Or we could have a humongous lead if we win next time and he finishes outside the points. However, that's very unlikely with it being Spa. So we have a 16-point lead on a charging Checo, and he's pretty much cemented his P2 today by finishing ahead of teammate Max Verstappen, who has 85 points. He's 35 behind us and starting to fall away from the title fight a little bit there. And of course, his teammate in P2. Mercedes remain P4 and 5, but Hamilton with that good P1 today, I've got to say. Really great drive from him. 76 points. He's 44 behind us, though, so it's quite a lot to claw back in 4 races, especially when we should have the advantage at Mexico. He's pretty much out the title fight, but he could still be in it with some fantastic results. He needs to really put in some great drives, and he could still be in it, but it's looking a little bit like he's out the equation. Similarly for Valtteri Bottas, that mechanical failure totally out of his hands there. 46 points now behind ourselves, 2 behind his teammate. It looks like at best he's probably going to be fighting for P3. The Mercs looking a little bit too far away now from me to be able to fight for the title. Charles Leclerc sits P6 for Ferrari. He has 40 points and is looking pretty comfortable now to stay there to the end of the season. Vettel remains P7 on 31 with some great results in the first half of the season, using that one-stop strategy to his advantage. He has the same amount of points as a charging Carlos Sainz. So the Ferraris have pretty much cleared all of those lower midfield drivers, apart from Sainz, just got to get past Seb. Lance Stroll with his DNF today doesn't add to his points tally. He sits in P9 for AlphaTauri on 28. Same amount of points as a charging Lando Norris. And that result for Lando Norris puts him within 3 points of Carlos and a lovely 12 behind Charles Leclerc, which means that Norris is back in the mix and could well be fighting for P6 come the end of the season. Alonso down to P11 with no points today despite that fantastic charge up the field. 27 points for him, 1 behind Lance Stroll when you look at that. Only 4 behind Seb Vettel, so a few points for him and he could really climb back up the order. Daniel Ricciardo, though, pretty much at the bottom of this pile of cars in the midfield, is outside the top 10. He is P12 with just 25 points after 7 races. That is really quite disappointing for him. It's just not really going for him. He's got 3 less than Lando now in terms of points, and he's 15 off Charles Leclerc. That's going to be a little bit difficult to claw back, especially when he's usually at the back of the McLaren-Ferrari group. So plenty of work left to do for Daniel Ricciardo in this season. Pierre Gasly sits P13 for AlphaTauri. He'll want to catch those 6 points up to his teammate Lance Stroll by the end of this season, but Pierre the Frenchman, P13, pretty solid there on 22 points. Only 3 behind Daniel Rick, so could still get into the mix with the McLarens and the Ferraris. My teammate Yuki sits at the back of the midfield fight. P14 for him with 21 points, not adding to his tally today thanks to grid penalties. A bit of a disappointing season so far for him. Started off well, but I was hoping for maybe top 10 at this stage, and it isn't really to be. Then Antonio Giovinazzi rounds out the point scorers with his fantastic point today for Alfa Romeo. That puts him P15. Russell, Schwartzman, Ocon, Raikkonen, Latifi, Schumacher and Mazepin all still yet to score. If we move on to the constructors' standings, Red Bull have a nice lead, I have to say. 189 points on the board, a 39-point lead to Mercedes. Race by race, it's looking a lot harder for Mercedes to manage to beat Red Bull to the constructors this season. They have exactly 150 and have moved ahead of ourselves as predicted. We're still pretty close to them, 9 points in fact. However, P3 looks like that's going to be our destiny for this season, if I am to be honest there. I can't see us really getting back up into the top 2, especially with Yuki maybe not scoring as frequently as we'd like. It's going to be difficult, but it's looking pretty likely that Red Bull will finish ahead of Merc and then ourselves. Ferrari a long way behind, but they now have an even nicer looking lead over McLaren. 71 points for Ferrari, 53 for McLaren, who have moved 3 points ahead of AlphaTauri. They'll be looking to stay there until the end of the season. AlphaTauri looking pretty strong for P6. They have 50 points, still could get into the mix with McLaren if Gasly and Stroll can get some great results, but yeah, looking pretty decent for P6, I have to say. Then Aston Martin in the battle for P7 with Alpine have still got a 4-point lead. Alfa Romeo now have a point on the board, P9 for them. Williams and Haas still yet to score, but it's looking very interesting in the drivers. Ourselves versus Perez. It is really heating up into the Belgian Grand Prix. Verstappen and Hamilton and Bottas are going to need something special to get into the mix. Can they provide that? And then, of course, you know, you've got the midfield fight. It's all over the place, but Ferrari looking stronger than McLaren. Can McLaren turn it around? Can Mercedes turn it around on Red Bull in the constructors? Will we have any more surprises? Plenty of action in today's race. Go over the top 10 one more time for you. Hamilton, Perez, Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, ourselves, Gasly, Ricciardo, and Antonio Giovinazzi scoring Alfa Romeo's first point of the career mode. But there you have it. What a pivotal race weekend for the championship. We still have a lead, but it is coming down to Checo. Drama with DNFs for Valtteri Bottas, and then a great strategy, but it flopped with us struggling on the mediums at the end. But overall, a fantastic Grand Prix, and great to see Lando on the podium, turning around a run of bad results for McLaren into a very decent result. But that is pretty much it for today's Hungarian GP video. It's been an exciting one. If you guys have enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But we are looking like we're going to have a fantastic title fight, and that will continue into the final 3 rounds of the season, starting with Spa. Watch out for those videos with quali and the race, but it's all to play for at the moment. thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you all sometime soon.